30. Uh, 15. 10, unmuting.
And welcome to Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak as chair, and of course the Libertarian National Committee, Whitney Bilyeu as chair. As always, John Gabso is joining us on the big board after a heroic Tuesday evening, 3 hours uninterrupted election coverage where he never left the keyboard. Never. He joins us again tonight to kind of give you the infographics, the background material, the fun stuff. Well, this is a week where we like to do victory dances. We like to spike the football. Yes, as a man once said, a wise man said, the taste of your tears is delicious to me. Your parties will die. So we'll do that tonight. Joining me tonight is a repeat offender, if you will, on both Affiliate Support and Candidates Corner is Jenn Moore. She is the chair of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. Jen, how are you?
Great. I'm back so soon, Pat.
Well, you know, we've spoken at length, pointedly, on this show throughout the last year or so, both on this and the Candidates Corner show and around LPTV about what's become known as the Moulton Maneuver. And it was a phenomenal showing Tuesday night, a lot of success. A lot of folks in a lot of communities are going to get to know the libertarian philosophy, not through preaching, not through conversations about Austrian economics, but simply as an extension of the day-to-day life of us libertarian Pennsylvanians were elected statewide to, as we like to say on the show, steward the resources of their community and work in conjunction with their community to achieve, well, self-ownership, financial success, and peace in their lifetimes. And so in a year or 2 or 3 now where we've faced significant challenges nationwide with both the pandemic and as well as the, if you will, the duopoly using the omnipotent state to drill down and continue to move the goalposts on our party, we need to celebrate success. Folks, I've been an activist going on 20 years, and I preach this to everyone. When you have those wins, take the moment, savor them. That's your energy to go forward to fight what can often be a war of attrition. 2 steps forward, 1 step back some days. Sometimes it's 2 and 2. Occasionally it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So you got to embrace those moments when the culmination of years of hard work, personal sacrifice, financial sacrifice, extending folks way beyond very often their personal comfort zone, both as candidates and as support people. You have to savor the moment. That's what, by the way, that's what we're going to do this week. Friday night, Ms. Ashley Shade is going to be joining us. We're all aware of her success now as a town council person in the burg of North Adams, in the most northwestern corner of Massachusetts. We're going to share some of her successes in what was the path to victory there. But for tonight, we're talking Pennsylvania. So, Jen, if you could kind of give us a recap of just this statewide slaughter, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, our goal this year was to elect at least 100 libertarians to public office. As of today, our count's at 130, and we still have a bunch of write-ins that we're waiting to, see. It may be a few weeks, up to a month in some cases, to actually hear. whether or not we won those elections. So it was kind of a whirlwind of a day. The good news was coming in so fast we couldn't even really keep track. About 10 o'clock that night, I started getting all the text. I won. It was really just an amazing thing to be a part of. York County, they won the most elections. They're currently at 14, I believe, within their county. So, that was a big deal. Allegheny was right behind them with 11, I believe. But we had some good showings in brand new county affiliates that organized less than a year ago, like Lebanon and Carbon. They elected, 4 or 5 candidates. And, for a committee that's only been around for less than a year, that's a really big deal. Up in Susquehanna Valley, we had some news. They were the only place in the state that had county-wides on the ballot. And those county-wides took like 18, 19%. If you get 5% in a county-wide race, you secure minor party status for your county for 2 years. So regardless of what happens with the state next year, whether we maintain our minor party status, they will have it in their county, which gives them some ballot access benefits and things like that without getting into too much detail. But also up in Susquehanna Valley, they have a ward, Sunbury Ward 6, which is now 100% gold. They have 4 Libertarians elected there. Both their constable, their judge of elections, their minority and majority inspector. Now, the inspectors are supposed to be from different parties, but one of them won write-in, so that's why they were able to kind of get away with it. But they have a whole Libertarian crew in Sunbury Ward 6, so that's a big deal. And that happened in my own county, in my own township as well. We just elected a constable to Upper Providence Township, where I'm an auditor. So we're seeing more Libertarians get elected in places where we already had one before. We actually won a contested election. Sayers Area School Board, Jamie Alsing won against a Republican, and it was in a county that won 79% for Trump in 2020. So that was that was a big deal. Benjamin Sievers, he ran for North Apollo Borough Council. He was in a 3-way race, but he came in first out of 3 against the 2 Republicans.
Oh my God, that's great.
So, I know we elected 2 mayors. We elected Sally Combs to Jersey Shore and Anthony Kuiper to South Vermont.
Well, now it's this is an important personal note. The largest speeding ticket that I was ever involved in my life actually occurred in Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania.
Really?
Some may not know is actually one of the official speed traps of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I think we were clocked at 97 in a street legal Camaro. This would have been 1979. I'm wondering, do they have any sort of criminal reform for, if you will, clearing my record? Is there expungement now going to be available? Can I get a pardon retroactively for my 97 mile per hour speed ticket in a street legal New Jersey registered Camaro?
Well, we did pass some expungement stuff here in Pennsylvania. I don't know, a year or 2 ago, so you might want to look into that. One of the other things in our contested races, there were a lot of places where we were getting 20, 25, 30%. Joel Getz had a great showing. He didn't win his election, but he did, a really great job. I think he got around 20, maybe a little bit more.
Right.
John Waldenberger in his council race got 30. We're closing the gap, even in the races we're not winning. And that's part of the strategy here as well, is to close that gap and get closer to winning some of these contested seats. Right. A lot of our re-election campaigns were successful. I know John Waldenberger is now, is the Telford Inspector of Elections. He was, he actually, was reelected. Julie Perry was elected for Inspector of Elections in her township. I believe Allison Smeltz was reelected. So that's a really healthy, good thing too, when we're seeing people be reelected.
That's always been the bugaboo, the challenge, if you will, hasn't it?
Right.
Particularly with folks who've been great enough to convert, jump ship, or come over to the Libertarian Party. Keeping them in office speaks not only as a testament to their efforts, but also the recognition that as a political party, now that we're getting people elected, we have to keep them in office.
Exactly.
how much effort was involved in that?
They ran, most of them were uncontested, but I think that, part of that was the fact that they were doing a good job, and, nobody really wanted to challenge them for it.
Right.
They got in there and, they've done the work, and, nobody saw fit to challenge them. So the one that I really want to talk about, that I was really excited about, was Michael Owen. I didn't even know that he was running. He's up in Bradford County. He was not on the ballot. He was a write-in candidate. He ran against an incumbent who was on the ballot. The guy was actually the sitting school board president, and he won. He won with 411 write-in votes to 390 votes for the balloted candidate.
Whoever that guy is who lost, drink the tears, baby. Should I give him a little cold call about, hey, fella, heard you had a rough week. Want to join the LP?
I mean, it just, it's amazing to see what our candidates have done around the state. And, it's just, I really think that we're going to go on to win more of these contested elections because, this is a multi-pronged strategy, right? In 2017, I was the first Moulton Maneuver candidate. It was me. That year, we won 15 elections in the nation, and 9 of them were in Pennsylvania. Going on to our next municipal, in 2019, we won 47 elections. 39 of them came in through the Moulton Maneuver through our recruitment drive. This year, we're looking at 150. And it's my hope that in 2023, we're going to double it again or triple it again. I mean, there's no reason we can't. But also part of the vision for the Moulton Maneuver, that me and, Dr. Moulton have talked about, on and off, over the years that we've been doing this and, attempting the strategy is to adapt it for other states and pass that on. So that kind of is the next phase in my mind is, you may not be able to do it exactly the way we do it, but there are opportunities in other places to, capitalize on some of these uncontested races. But in conjunction with that, we need to be fighting those contested races as well, those messaging campaigns, those ballot access campaigns. We need to be closing the gap so that we can get closer to winning on those. And we're doing it here in Pennsylvania. I mean, the winning kind of begets winning.
Right. And again, there's always, we're libertarians. Some might say we're argumentative. Not sure where that comes from, but listen, winning elections doesn't that change people's focus? All of a sudden, your eye on the ball isn't internal. Your eye on the ball isn't looking to the obscure or the petty. All of a sudden, your eye on the ball is celebrating each other's wins and hopefully being as big a part as possible of that win for everybody in the community. We continue to stress, and Pennsylvania's living example to this, is that let's direct our frustrations with current events, the omnipotent state, outward towards the communities that we're in so that we can elect stewards who are responsible for the people. And we continue to protect the ultimate minority, which is the individual, isn't it?
It sure is. Pat, one of the things that, we get a little bit of pushback on is that these are they're not important positions, or they're not big enough positions. And I assure you, they absolutely are. And the other thing about, it is a lot of work to run a campaign for a few months, but it's a heck of a lot more work to serve in public office for 6 years. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I'm serving in office myself. Some of these candidates or these winners now, these elected officials, they'll put a lot more into it than others. But at the end of the day, even if you do the bare minimum as an auditor and you go to your meeting once a year, you're still letting people know that there's a libertarian in your community, you're willing to serve. And then there's the auditors who are really going to look into the books and who are going to find things and who are going to say this isn't right and change the way that things are done. I can tell you, and I know that we've talked about this before, Pat, the Democrats and the Republicans both in my community call me to ask me questions about the libertarian position on things. I mean, there's no doubt that they're paying attention to what this party's doing. And now there's 2 of us. So they'll have, like, in true libertarian style, they'll get, differing viewpoints about, where we're at with things. But I mean, the constables, they can, do everything from just, keeping the peace at the polls on election day to actually, serving warrants and choosing which ones they want to serve and doing court work. Some people will put a lot more into it than others, but we also elected mayors and supervisors and school board. We found that about 10% of these positions that we targeted were decision-making positions. And the other ones, although they aren't necessarily decision-making, they're important in the sense that they're the oversight to the government.
Right.
They're the people who are ensuring elections integrity at their polling place. It's a really big deal for us to have people in those seats. And they will be building the relationships to go on and get elected or appointed to a bigger seat in coming days. I promise you that.
I'm particularly excited by the emergence of libertarians on school boards. Around the nation, and in my day job, if you will, I'll just leave it, that I spent a fair amount of time with some of the more oppressive, heinous school boards, in central New England. And, if you don't have kids in school right now, I don't know if you're really aware of the base level oppression that's taking place in school boards. The simple failure to acknowledge the right of parents everywhere to be intimately involved with the education of their children, and particularly when it's state-sponsored indoctrination/education, that parents have just a simple right. It's not because they're taxpayers. It's a natural right. Parents should be dictating the course, if you will, of the education of their children. Now, it seems so simple, and for years, how many times, Jen, as you as a mom of younger children, and me, now that my kids are out of college, how many years do we listen to school boards decry the fact that parents were not as involved as they'd like them to be because they're working 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 jobs simply to pay their, obeisance to the state, right? So, to all of a sudden, with one of those unplanned, unpredicted, if you will, ramifications of the dread COVID was that parents were living face to face. They could no longer, and I say this gently, as a parent myself, that they could no longer be unaware. How about that? Of how their children's education sometimes was being conducted. Sometimes it was literally happening in the same room as families gathered around the new shrine of the new millennium, which is, of course, the cathode ray tube, as we all, again, plugged into our state indoctrination. So, to see parents electing libertarians whose focus on education is appropriate. Let's give our children the basics. Let's work to provide alternatives. Let's work to provide competition in the education market. That's thrilling to the core, because I have literally been in school board meetings for somewhere in the 15 to 18 hour range over the last 3 weeks. It is thrilling to the core. And please get me their names, because we'd love to interview them on the candidate show, because we want to take the next couple of weeks, not only to introduce our new candidates for 2022, but to celebrate folks who are making these crazy incursions to school boards, town councils, as well as these quietly important jobs like auditor. It's thrilling to the core. Absolutely.
I think that's going to be one of our tasks as leadership, Pat, is to, follow up on especially with Pennsylvania being so decentralized when it comes to local municipalities and elections. Sometimes it's hard for us to even track where these people are. But as leaders, we're going to need to follow up on their wins, make sure we're having that conversation and, so that we can celebrate, even 2 years from now or 4 years from now when they, stop something that shouldn't have been in the budget or whatever happens. But going back to school boards, I've realized through all of this how incredibly lucky I am. I moved from a very large school when I was in middle school to a very small rural community. And I was in advanced math classes, not because I was like super smart, but because the school that I came from was just that many books ahead. It was really, the school was maybe a fifth of the size, and I really struggled there. They just didn't have the resources. And I look now to where my children are at. My children are in public school, and they're in a very, very good school district. And I realize that part of that is because I have the financial mobility to choose a place like that. And so many parents don't have that choice. They're living in the same town that they've always been all of their life. And, we need to build up those communities, rather than, moving out of them like, maybe I did. As my kids were home and homeschooled during the pandemic, I was working from home. I was here with them. I had the ability to, stop and help my first grader find the page in her book. Not every parent could do that. And it's not lost on me how it was, how much easier, even if it in its difficulty, all of these things have been for me, because we do have, great schools that I trust, because my school boards do make good decisions, and what a fight it is for some of these families.
Right. We live in a nation where in so many places your educational opportunities are based on the zip code of your birth, and there are no alternatives. There are no private, if you will, competition, free market competition for driving, if you will, this quality of the schools. And in let's just say in many communities in the country, mainly very often tied to educational levels, financial standards, things like that. The community itself is enough pressure to ensure great performance from their schools. But we all know that there's plenty of examples of that. And a key issue going forward is empowering people, I believe, in inner city communities, in the urban core, as we say here in the Northeast, to literally take over and take control of their schools and force alternatives to failed public education. We've got communities here in Rhode Island where, incredibly enough, based on the state test that the educational community picked out for themselves, so they own it, right? We've got communities where less than 10% of the children meet basic performance levels. Less than 10% in the United States here in the year 2021. That is unimaginable, that a nation of this much wealth, where our, if you will, our college and our post-college institutions are literally the envy of the world. How is it possible that we could perform so poorly? And one of the issues is parental control. Another issue is ensuring competition, ensuring alternatives for children who learn differently, for children who are in the mainstream, for children who may ultimately pursue a technical career. The free market can provide those circumstances, and they have to compete for the business. And they're going to be rated independently by parents, by word of mouth, by job placement, by college placement. Those are the type of metrics. If we can have a Yelp for Chinese restaurants, if you can search Thai food along the I-95 corridor, then damn it, you should be able to get that same level of analysis for something critically important like our children's education.
Yeah, it was something that I was very apprehensive about when I had children, because I know that I'm not going to be a homeschooler. It's just not my niche. I mean, I went and got I got an MBA when I was 24. I planned on being a career woman. And I did take about 4 years off when they were babies, because I mean, daycare is more than college. It was more than my mortgage. I have 2 kids in daycare, and for me to stay in management at that time, I was, I had to make a decision. I could work a lower level job and give it all to daycare, or I could be in management like I am now and, work long work weeks and not have the time for the babies. I did return to management, once they were school age, but I do look at the community that I live in, and I think that this is a prime example of a place where people do have some of those choices because they're financially able. It's an upper middle class suburb about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. And, people can put their kids in private schools. They can homeschool. They have the financial mobility to do that, which is it's an unusual luxury in this country for people to do that. But I think that that's probably why my schools are so good. It all kind of feeds into it itself. I wish that I could find a homeschooler to, take my kids. I think that now with the pandemic, that may be more of an option for families. At this point, my kids have their friends at school. And that's the other difficulty, is you can't really change halfway through very easily, because your kids themselves will balk at it. But, even with the masking and stuff, my school has been very reasonable. They've talked to parents, they've done surveys, and when they've made decisions about it, before the Harrisburg stuff came down, there were deadlines on how long they were going to do it. There were parameters that they set about, when we were going to wear masks and when we weren't. It wasn't just, we're doing this into perpetuity because we're scared. It was like, okay, these are the metrics that we're going to set. If
Wow.
case rates are at this, height, then we're going to wear them, and we're going to reevaluate every few weeks. It was more reasonable than what you see out of, some of the other areas.
During the day, I'm a member of the working media, and I'll leave it at that. But I've had the opportunity on a number of occasions to directly in press conferences challenge our governor of a year ago, who's now incredibly enough the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, and our current governor, McKee, who we refer to as Governor McCheese. And I begged for metrics, simply because that establishes buy-in from the community. There's a consensus reached. There's an opportunity for debate. And you're talking about, again, being ruled not by a government. You're talking about consensus government by folks acting as stewards. And it's a critical difference. And the communities that have engaged, created buy-in, had decisions, I think ultimately are going to be the ones proven to be most successful at virtually every level at recovering from the quote-unquote pandemic. It's a critical point, and it's something that libertarians need to drive home. You can, and I think we saw some of the posts early on, you can be concerned about COVID. You can understand that for many people, it can be, and I know when I say this, it is, it's affected your family on a deep, deep level. And so, of course, it's important that we have proper respect for a difficult disease. But at the same time, we can also have a mature conversation about edicts and mandates and impacts and what works and what doesn't work. So it's a critical point. It's a winning issue for us, as is, and one of the things I want to review with some of your candidates in the coming weeks is what were other winning issues. By the way, if you're just joining us, Jenn Moore is the chair of the LPPA, the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania. They're coming off a successful week. For many mature adults, it would be simple enough to bask in the glow of success, as Ms. Moore like to do. Then there's people like me who want to spike the football, want to chant endlessly in front of these people home, want to do the L sign for loser, loser, loser for some of these Democratic and Republican candidates. Sorry, guilty.
Well, Pat, it's one of those things that politics really does make strange bedfellows, and you don't know when you're going to need to work with those people in a year.
You see, there you go.
I can say that because I am an elected official, and
Right.
I understand that I may need them to have quorum on my board to get something done.
Well, there you go, being the adult in the room again. Damn you. Let's talk about ballot access and the implications. We talked briefly before the show about some of the interesting twists and turns that you alluded to, some of them already, that these elections have had on minor party status. If you could give us kind of a quick backdrop to how it works in Pennsylvania. Every state's got its own special recipe, secret sauce, if you will, that they've comported. We call it here, making the sausage. And ballot access is kind of like making the skin for the sausage. What are the rules in Pennsylvania, and what are some of the twists and turns about this election and the upcoming election that impact the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania?
So, ballot access in Pennsylvania, it's typically for most races, we need to gather signatures in 2% of the highest vote getter in the last winter. Some of the counties calculate it differently, and we had some problems with that this past time around. We actually ended up going to court because one of the counties was doing some really strange calculations, saying that it was 2% of the total vote. So I mean, things get, like I said, it's very decentralized here. Things can get, kind of strange, but ultimately it's supposed to be 2% of the highest vote in the last election for that position, not for the presidential or whatever other strange way that some solicitor might do things. So in looking at ballot access for these, 100 candidates that we put on the ballot, 140 candidates, we actually had to go and calculate it 2% of the winner the last time this position was open. Now, when it comes to the big statewide races like president or auditor general or attorney general or treasurer, or this coming year, it'll be governor and senate. Those were actually set by a court case in 2016. So rather than needing 2%, which in those cases would have been about 56,000 signatures, we need 5,000 valid for the higher level ones. And then for the row offices, it's 2,500. So when I ran for auditor general, I needed 2,500. Joe Jorgensen needed 5,000. In reality, you need to get 10,000 because you need to have enough cushion in the event of a ballot challenge. So next year, we're going to be facing that same, we need 10,000 signatures. That being said, the nice thing about our elections is that you can stack those signatures. So every state rep that's running, every state senator that's running for office next year, and it'll just be the state level positions next year. We don't, in federal positions, we do municipal and odd years. Those people who need to go out and get 300 or 400 or 600 for their campaign, those will count towards our gubernatorial and our Senate campaign. So the idea right now is to start recruiting. And the LPPA board actually did just set aside some money for a mailer. They voted on it at our last meeting, that we're going to, send a letter to everybody who is a state or national member and ask them to run for state rep or state senate next year. If we can recruit enough candidates to get those 10,000 signatures, then we hopefully won't need a paid ballot access drive. We actually, in 2018, I ran the paid drive. We got about 3,000 signatures from the paid petitioners. We probably didn't need it. And the main reason for that was our executive director, before he was our executive director, Kevin Gaughan, he had helped to organize the volunteer drive. And he was so successful in that we really ended up getting like 13 or 14,000 signatures. We were way over the limit that we needed. So if we can replicate that in 2022, hopefully we won't have to drop, $10,000 or $15,000 of our treasury on the paid guys. I know that if any of them are watching this, that won't make them happy.
Daryl's watching.
I know, Daryl, Andy. Sorry, guys. But
Daryl,
you know
where
what?
are you?
I am on the National Ballot Access Committee, so I will help you find work. I promise.
There you go. Hey, folks, Daryl is one of the amazing people in the petition business.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in the Libertarian Party needs to work alongside of Daryl. If you could stand or watch, be that person just kind of watching Daryl for an hour or two, you will see a Renaissance man of petitioning. He's that good.
Did you know he's from Philadelphia? I owe him dinner next time he's here.
And the key to his heart is serious local dining. I will say that. He's a big man, and his heart is just as big.
Kevin and Andy Jacobs are also from Pennsylvania, though. They're from out mid-state. So, all of these guys appreciate coming back to their home state to petition. And, so I'm kind of lucky in that sense because they all want to come here to see their families. So
Right. And, again, I'll bring up another great affiliate that I spent the weekend with in Syracuse. The New York State people are facing a real series of hurdles. They've done a wonderful job. The whole crew of blowing things up in New York. And yet, once again, this is one of those states where the ballot access goalpost might as well be on wheels, because every time they make it, it gets changed on again by an oppressed. And I just want to bring up a point. I love your comment on this. We as a party have not done a good job of assaulting, if you will, the duopoly's control over ballot access and how that is used to disenfranchise Americans. What does Kara call them? The dog vomit parties. Yes, the dog vomit parties go around the nation. What's the cliche for this year? Pearl clutching and virtue signaling about the importance of having honest, fair elections. The Democratic Party in particular speaks constantly to the notion of, we need to make sure that we ensure every voter. And my retort to that, if you will, is balderdash, because while you're doing that simultaneously, you are preventing Americans from investigating and ultimately exercising their true choice in voting by these oppressive ballot measure techniques, which ensure that they will continue to be the only act in town. So the question I would love every libertarian to ask the poobahs, if you will, of the Republican and Democratic Party is there any difference between disenfranchising people from voting and eliminating their choices of who they can vote for. And in fact, if you're old enough, like I am, to go back to Soviet workers' paradise in Brezhnev era Russia, where everybody could vote and everybody did vote for the one choice they have, is there much of a difference? And on a moral level, and this is the important part, all kidding aside, on a moral level, isn't limiting people's choices, preventing competition in the marketplace of electoral ideas, isn't that just as heinous, just as immoral as preventing people from the vote altogether?
You know, if I wouldn't have been in politics these past 5 years, minor party politics at that, I wouldn't believe how ugly it gets. There were times where we were denied our day in court. In 2018, Steve Sheets collected enough signatures to qualify for the ballot. He was challenged, and he didn't get his day in court. A Commonwealth Court judge actually ruled that he was compelled to participate with the people challenging him, and they wanted him to go to the County Board of Elections and help them prove their case against him. So he had to go the week leading up to court with his counsel, take a week off work and go there and help them count the signatures to, prove that he didn't have enough valid. At that point, he didn't have $10,000 for legal counsel and a week off work because libertarians were career politicians, and he decided to cede the ballot. He never got to court. But, it gets so much worse than that. During the pandemic, we had 6-foot distancing, we had lockdown orders, we had shelter in place, we had no big events. And the LPPA went to the Board of Elections in Harrisburg and said, what are we supposed to do about petitioning? We need to collect 10,000 signatures to get Joe Jorgensen on the ballot. And other states are, waiving some of these requirements. What are you guys going to do? They didn't answer us. Finally, we brought them to federal court. The Democrats intervened to tell us that there was nothing preventing us from getting 10,000 face-to-face wet ink signatures, that we didn't need any kind of help with, even just putting them on standard paper instead of legal paper. Who has legal paper in their house? We can't email somebody a PDF and have them printed on legal at home. And that was one of the things that they said, well, why don't you just email or mail these? Well, actually, we've tried that in the past, and I had good data on why that doesn't work, because that's the type of thing I do, is I collect this data, especially in off years. I try to send petitions and see what we get back, and it turns out to cost us $20 a signature. So I said, no, that's not going to work for us. Electronic petitions, they could have done a lot of things to give us relief. Instead, I went up there and I talked about how I'm a healthcare professional and what I'm seeing, coming in through work. And the Democrats' counsel looked right at me when I was on the stand in federal court, and he told me that COVID-19 is only dangerous in my opinion. And I said, yes, my opinion as a healthcare worker.
Wow.
The Democrats were completely willing to flip their script and go against the whole narrative of their party for their own political gain when it came to ballot access. So really, when they're talking about, free and fair elections, it's very difficult to believe them. After what, and when you tell the Democrats that this happened, they'll call you a liar, and you'll point them to the court case, and they'll be like, that never happened, and they'll laugh at you. But no, it really did happen. It happened very recently.
I did an earned media little mini session at the New York convention this week, and that's why I say these days, and it's tough when you're operating in a court environment. If it didn't happen on video, it's pretty much didn't happen. And that's what we as a party have to step up when and wherever possible. My own personal nadir, my own personal low point was the day that I was at the, we had no relief whatsoever at any level with the exception of some notarization issues with petitioning to get Joe on the ballot. And we had to get 1,000, which, meant we, what that really means. And in a state of less than a million, state of 1 million people with an overwhelming Democratic majority. And my low point, and this is silly, I just got to throw this in there compared to your testimony, but the day I got kicked off of the grounds of the Rhode Island Department of Motor Vehicles while attempting to catch ballot signatures to meet the requirements that the state of Rhode Island in the midst of a COVID crisis that the state of Rhode Island continued to impose on us. And I said, and you get it's policy. It is policy, and it is, we cannot violate policy. You will not violate policy. And all of us know that in government, the P word is akin to sacred. And that's why, we come full circle in this conversation and we point to the gains made and the ability now. And it's interesting because you have local people who now can run for elevated offices while retaining their local offices, while continuing to get, and such a critical part of the election process is name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got what ultimately may be in excess of 150 libertarian elected politicians who will have the benefit of using the state, if you will, moment of irony, to increase their name recognition so that they can advance in the community, steward resources at a higher level, which ultimately makes it easier for you to elect more. And that's, to me, is the ultimate proof of concept for the Moulton Maneuver. All of this stuff ties into this vortex, if you will, of electoral politics. Success begets success. Work begets the opportunity to engage in more work. Talk to us about ballot access. Talk to us about the support that you have to generate from within Pennsylvania. Affiliates across the nation are fighting these same battles.
It's interesting because on the Jorgensen campaign, we had about 300 separate petitioners, 325. Those people who sent 10 or 15 signatures, they made a huge difference. Our ballot access drive was successful because of them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize how little it takes to just grab one of those petitions and circulate it among your family or your neighbors and send it back to us. How that builds up to us putting people on the ballot, because if we don't have to put the resources into fighting for ballot access, and we can use that money for media, for mailing, and our candidates, can get over that step more easily. We're getting really good at it. In 2017, a bunch of us were dragged into court with ballot challenges, and we had to spend money on lawyers. Now we understand the bureaucracy. We don't trust the state, so we're going to make sure our papers are perfect. If you're willing to, give us a few signatures and help with that, that doesn't have to be such a huge, financial and time sink for volunteers. If we can get over that hump relatively quickly and easily, then we can get into the real meat of campaigning, which is what we need to do to get our message out there and win some of these bigger contested elections.
I'll always use the Maine story as an example. Maine in 2020, getting Joe Jorgensen on the ballot, it was a lot of work. They got screwed. They had, they had a New York maneuver pulled on them at the last minute. Great guys up there, a lot of great growing affiliates around Maine. So, it came time to get the petition signatures. And I went up there for 2 days. And wow, talk about a humbling experience. Of course, I'm not the smartest guy. I'm the guy who stood outside of a whole paycheck for 2 days in 95-degree heat, trying to get, Trumpers and lunatic, Biden fanatics to sign my signature in the interest of fairness. It was an amazing experience. I think I got something like in 2 days, something along the lines of 13 or 14 signatures, which of course is horrific. And there were probably 10 or 20 of us who just kind of like sheepishly, walked in. It's like, your late final exam. All right, drop the petition. I just remember meeting Chris Thrasher in this small town in central Maine, handing my petitions. Gotta go, get the car. Well, the differential between getting ballot access in Maine, because we were successful as a party.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people came up from New Hampshire. A lot of people dug in. Was, I believe, somewhere around 10 or 11 signatures.
It was a tiny amount. I know when Chris Thrasher was on here with when him and I were here talking to you, that was one of the things that we discussed.
If one of us had bailed that weekend and say, "I'm out of here. This sucks.
Yeah.
I'm just done,"
we would have lost 50 state ballot access.
Right. That's why you're right. Going into the 2022, and this is the scary part. It seems so far away. Nope, we're less than a year. and we're back at it again.
Back at it again. You know, Pat, that's one of the things as you bring it up. I was thinking to myself recently, I love petitioning. I'm really good at it and I enjoy it. And I guess it's a gift. I mean, I think that
It is.
probably really crazy too. But now that I'm at a different level and I'm the chair of a state party and I'm involved on these big strategic initiatives, I was talking a lot of candidates through it. But I wasn't out there petitioning myself, and I realized how much I miss it. I want to be out there on the ground, doing that. And I'm hoping that next year, at least on primary day, I'll be out there petitioning. But it really struck me, and the reason why I was thinking about it was because I was out for Kevin Gaughan, our executive director. He was running a writing campaign for auditor, and I went out on an election day to hand out his cards, and I was just really, really enjoying being out there talking to his constituents and asking them to vote for him. And that's the kind of stuff that I don't get to do much of at the level that I'm at anymore, because I'm just needed in a million places. And I give up my whole summer for ballot access every year, but it's because I'm managing a paid drive or because I'm teaching classes to the county committees. It's just a different level of work. And I enjoy that too, but it's not quite the same thing as out there, on the ground talking to people. I wish I could do more of that. You mentioned earlier about, them blocking you from getting signatures. That actually happened here in 2020. We did a lot of our petitioning at farmers markets and in public parks because that was, the way that we could get to people during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And we actually had a conservation officer kick somebody out of the park. And, it's your constitutional right to be petitioning. It's not soliciting.
Right.
And that he was actually prosecuted for it. When he was turned in, he ended up losing his job. It was a really big deal that they had, ejected our petitioners from a state park.
It's remember, the system exists to propagate and perpetuate the system. There's no interest in introducing the free market to the electoral system in America, if you even want to dignify it with that term these days. I know we're going to get a group of people in when we get closer to petitioning season to essentially let's give a virtual class on affiliates hour one night as we get closer. And I would love to have your input on that with you and anyone from PA who's been a successful petitioner, because there are tricks to it. It's tough when you've got a widely dispersed party to get the kind of hands-on training you need to learn to run a petition drive. Too often for a lot of us, it's learned by experience. And boy, did I learn by experience. The one thing I did that was really positive, I ran the last week of the campaign, I ran about a 4-day tab at a local IHOP, which was worth the hundreds of dollars that I spent. I found that if you fed people that they were willing to, particularly with pancakes with little smiley faces on them, that they were willing to go out there and petition. Yeah. But the timing of it, understanding when you need to bring in the paid people, all of that stuff, there are incredible nuances to it. So I'm inviting your participation early on.
Who are best? Yeah, I was just going to say Ryan Brinsky was reading my mind. Liz Truwilliger is our petitioner. She got more signatures than anybody, including some of our paid petitioners. I mean, she was out there every weekend. She collected over 1,000 by herself.
Wow. Oh, that hurts to think about.
We have in Pennsylvania, we have from mid-March until August 1st. So we have a long petitioning period, which is nice. But, she was out there doing it, and she was bringing in, some days I'm sure she only got 10 or 20 and other days she got 50, but she always had an event. She was always out there petitioning. She was just doing it. And that was another really heartbreaking case where she lost the ballot by less than 20 signatures. I looked over her ballot challenge myself. She had enough to qualify, but she didn't have quite enough to, enough valid. So they managed to kick her off the ballot over just a handful. If she would have had, that 20 more signatures, she would have made it. She ran a very successful writing campaign. She spread her message. She's still working. We're going to put her on the ballot in 2022 for Congress. I mean, that's a given.
Right.
you know, I think that all of us are motivated to make sure that she gets there after what happened to her. But, you know, those are the really hard losses when your best candidate doesn't make the ballot, especially by such a small margin. I mean, she really is one of the best of us. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
She's an outstanding human being. And again, that speaks to the, you know, what's the oldest cliche in the book? Many hands makes light work. And again, if simply everyone in Pennsylvania went out and got 50 signatures themselves, just set that as a goal. I'm going to get 50 signatures, get it in early so we get a jump on things. We understand where we stand and where we're going to need paid petitioners. That step alone, making that personal commitment, which is attainable, absolutely attainable when you have a few months, just getting your friends, getting your family, just taking the time to do it early on, and I don't even know what the numbers are. Is it that 50 or is it 100? But if everybody did that, think of how much more money would be available. Think of also when you create the area of inevitability to the other parties, when you show up with 8,000, 9,000 signatures, you know, a month or two into it, and it's like, all right, screw with us now, and imagine the publicity that comes along with that type of effort. Now, the one thing I just wanted to make sure we catch before we part ways tonight, you've already had some opportunity to speak in the media. Has the general political world in Pennsylvania acknowledge or they understand the impact of your successes Tuesday night?
I don't think so. You know, I think that the party really understands, but I don't think that we've gotten it out into the mainstream media like we need to. Our media relations committee, you know, it's been working very diligently on press releases. I've given a lot of the updates that I gave tonight through my chair page. Our social media committee is doing a great job, you know, putting together just like short bios of these candidates who have won to kind of let you know who they are. You know, we are pushing that stuff out there. Our chair of Chester County, Stephen Warhafig, they are in the news weekly, at least in the local papers. I mean, he is so good at writing these things.
Yeah, we had him on.
Yeah,
we had him. He's phenomenal.
He really is. And I mean, he gives, you know, these county committees blueprints to, you know, push some of this out. So it's my hope, you know, here we are a week from election day, and, you know, you don't want the news to get stale, but, you know, we are mobilizing to get as much of this as we can picked up and out there. I think that, you know, like I said, you know, it's a really big, exciting week, but most of these people won 6-year terms. There's some 2- and 4-year terms, but the majority of these are 6-year terms. So these people are going to be serving in office for the next 6 years. You know, they're just getting started on what they're going to do.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, 4 years in, when they really, you know, when they become the chair of their board of auditors, or they've really built up their confidence to understand what's going on, and they've built those relationships within their municipality. I mean, that's where we're going to see the real action.
Well, it's that time in the show when we ask you to engage in shameless self-promotion. So tell us how folks can, well, first of all, tell us where folks can find your chair's page so they can kind of keep abreast of the ongoing, you know, events over the next few weeks with regard to the just past elections. But at the same time, how people in Pennsylvania or outward, you know, we constantly harp on the notion that we are a national party. That if folks see candidates like a Liz Truwilliger, they see a candidate like that, and we're going to have her on again soon. They see a candidate like her and they say, wow, I may be in fill in the blank, Arkansas, I may be in Nevada, but you know what? I'm going to send Liz $25 and understand the impact of having a great candidate like that is not only important in Pennsylvania, but it's important around the country. We support our candidates. They make more noise. It forces the Democratic or Republican Party to come to the table to deal with us. We're here. We're not going anywhere. And it changes the electoral calculus in ways that we will never even understand. So tell us how folks can support candidates. And then before you go, I have one message to the people of Pennsylvania and others about what we want to do on the show this year.
So I want to, before I get into the shameless self-promotion, there's one thing that I want to say to all of our candidates who didn't win this time around. I've been doing this for about 5 years. And from my position, looking at our strategic goals and the in building and growing this party. I'm telling you that what you did not do in vain. I am watching this tapestry unwind where our contested races are building on each other. Every race, every candidate, you don't know who you inspired, who is going to 2 years from now come in and be one of our best activists, one of our best petitioners, one of our best candidates themselves, who said, you know what, I saw you run a year ago or 2 years ago, and I'm here because you got me interested in the LP. But not only that, in the places where candidates have run before, you are blazing the way. And the next person who comes behind you is going to have a higher percentage. We're seeing it month after month, year after year, campaign after campaign, that we really are bridging that gap. Everything that you're doing is so appreciated. And, some of these campaigns that right now for us are unwinnable, they are what we're organizing counties around. Candidates that maybe only got 3 or 4%, they might have had a county that kind of like convalesced around their campaign. And now that county is 2 years ahead of the other counties that didn't have a campaign to do that with. So I want to thank all of you who ran in contested races, that at the end of the day, you might not have won and you feel like it all trickled away after election day. It did not. The momentum that you built is still here, right along with our wins, and it's so important. All of that being said, I would say that, we always appreciate donations at lppa.org/donate. You can sign up to be a member there as well. A lot of what we do in our party growth and building is based on direct mail, and that costs money. We've gotten a lot better at it, but, that's how we bring in our membership. That's how we recruit our candidates. Another thing that I would say is all of you in other states who are watching this, we do want to help you. West Benedict wants to help you. Chuck Moulton wants to help you. I want to help you. All of us who have been doing this want to look at your situation and see if we can, adapt it to where you're at. And, make sure that we spread this across the country. This was kind of the proving ground. And now that we know it works, we want to make sure that all of America is this successful. And this is the keystone state. It's a barometer for the rest of the nation. I really believe that this is just the beginning for the LP. I guess that's the majority of what I have to say. There's not a lot of shameless self-promotion at the end of a campaign season. We're going to enjoy this very short break before the whole cycle begins anew. So,
well, I have to say, on a personal note, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed spending time with you throughout this entire process. You and I started having these conversations over a year ago, and between you and literally a significant part of the LPPA, who blessed us and graced us with their time on the air, in person. It's just been wonderful to see the continual evolution and growth in a state where so much of what's good about this country started, so much about what's important about the notion of liberty was created. To see a state like Pennsylvania begin to turn back to its roots in American liberty, American exceptionalism. When I say that, I mean the idea, the philosophies, the notions, the underpinnings of what we consider the best of our American democracy, our American republic. It's stunning to watch. It's not even happening in slow motion, I'd say. It's happening at an exponentially increasing speed. And I thank you for your support of the show and all the time you've invested.
Well, I thank you for all the times that I've been on here. I will tell you that Chuck did an excellent write-up of the Moulton Maneuver and how it's implemented. We had one here on the show also, but he did a write-up for the LP newsletter. So anybody who's interested can look at, the words from Dr. Moulton himself. He's got it out there. And I'm telling you another thing. I mean, this proves, I just shared the pictures on my chair page of when I was running for office 4 years ago. I was the very first Moulton Maneuver candidate. It was me, one candidate. And now we've implemented this strategy and we're at about 170 wins and counting, the last couple of election cycles. So it goes to show you when you have a good idea and you have some motivated activists, how far you can go.
And they never require force, do they?
No.
But listen, we're going to try and step it up here on the show. I'm going to ask you to help me in spreading this word. we like to think that we offer a service here on LPTV. It's very cost effective for the party to use fundamental social media to deliver a message to everyone in the party, whether they be members of the party, the big L, or even in the small L sense. We want to jazz it up, make this an even more important platform for people who want to engage with the party nationally. To that event, we if you have candidates out there, folks, reach out to me. I'm all over social media. Right now I'm on the LNC for the time being. I can be found just about anywhere. pat.ford@lp.org is an easy one. We want candidates. If candidates are doing commercials, and we don't mean television quality, but a dedicated commercial of 15 or 30 seconds, we're going to put as many on the air as we can, just to share the love and the fun. All right. If folks are having events, particularly events like you folks had in Pennsylvania, like folks this past weekend had, like the Alaska Gold Rush, we want to share them with the nation, because you know what? We'll have folks on to talk about what they're doing so they can share best practices and they can share ideas. And most importantly, if candidates or parties are having money bombs about, well, it could be for your legal fund. We all know how that's going to be important this year. It can be for your ballot access fund. It can be for candidates, both large office and down balloted. Let us know, because we want to publicize it. And because again, the mantra here is to take the needs and the desires and the issues and all that surrounding with campaigns and make them not just a local issue, say in Montco or Pittsburgh or West Pittston, but to make those issues, as they impact local down ballot candidates, the issues for people in Northern California, in Maine, in Florida, in Texas, everywhere, because we are a national party, but we're also a philosophy and a movement and a belief system. In order to bring it to scale, to share what we believe, we need a nation to come together and support a libertarian nation. So I put that out there for this year coming up. Please join us on LPTV. We're trying to figure out, and we're working on ideas to make this a better experience for everyone. So if you can help me spread that message, I would be personally grateful.
Pat, we're looking to have an elected libertarian summit at our convention, and we would love to have you come cover that. So
we'll be there.
Our convention is March 4th. And, Liz Truwilliger also just announced perspectives on freedoms for next year, in next September. So, that's another event that I know of for the moment. I'll drop one little last nugget here. I haven't really made a solid decision about running for re-election for chair or not yet. It's a lot of work. But if I were going to do that, one of my goals that I would like to see is to appoint at least 50 people to municipal boards around the Commonwealth. I think that's very important too. Not just these elections, but going and serving on zoning boards and water boards and, making these decisions for your community. So, please, any of you who are listening who might have an interest but never wants to run a campaign, go to your township meetings and volunteer for the finance board. You might be surprised. You might get appointed pretty easily if you're willing to serve.
Right. And that's the fundamentals of our government, if you will, here, not only just in Pennsylvania, but in America at large. Folks, you've been listening to the Libertarian Affiliate Spotlight on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party Affiliate Support Committee, Valerie Sarwak as chair, and of course, Whitney Bilyeu of the Libertarian National Committee. A big thanks always to John Gapso. He runs the big board here. He's the guy who brings you the infographics and the entertaining, livens it up. Folks, it's the beginning of a new year. This is the kickoff. You had 2 days off. What were you thinking? Let's fire it up this year. Let's make it personal. Let's take it to the streets. Let's engage. Let's involve. Let's educate. Let's preach. It's time. As I always like to say, we have one simple advantage over every other political organization, every other philosophy, every other belief system. We're right. Have a great week. Friday night, Ashley Shade, 9 o'clock. We're going to spike that football hard. All right. Imagine a libertarian elected in the bluest part of this nation, Western Massachusetts. Ashley's got a lot to say, and I can't wait to have that conversation. Have a great week. We'll see you Friday.